Ken Yukuhiro, one of the most creative deck builders, playing Bant Ramp, is going to kick things off for our feature matches this round. And for a closer look, I'm going to send it back over to day 9.
Thank you so much, Maria. This is a sort of matchup that I'm super interested to see play out, because I feel like this is one of the very first things that you were saying at 8 a.m. day 1. Why did Bant Ramp start to show up so much in the meta?
I think primarily it's to beat on the Esper hero decks. You know, the Esper hero deck plays a handful of removal, but not enough to be able to deal with all the ramp creatures. And then the Bant Ramp decks can just simply go over the top of whatever the Esper hero deck's looking to do. You talked about it in that replay we just watched, where Esper hero just gets incremental advantages. What the Bant Ramp deck is looking to do is play out a bunch of mana creatures and then just play giant haymakers time after time to kind of take over the game.
Let's take a look at Kai Budde's Esper Hero deck. Now, it's called Esper Hero due to the Hero of Precinct 1. You'll note how many multicolored cards there are for synergy. But in terms of the creatures that just have presence on the board, you have 3 elite guard mages, you have 2 hostage takers, and also to help battle for control of the board, you have the Oaths of Kaya early on. And there's 3 copies of Tyrant Scorn, which is going to help quite a bit. There's not that many Tyrant Scorn in some of the other Esper lists.
Right. What Kai really wants to be doing in this matchup is using those removal spells to really try to slow down what Ken Yukuhiro is trying to do, which is basically play out a bunch of ramp creatures to get to his 5 and 6 mana cards.
Yeah, and I want to just sort of look at the spread, focus on the Planeswalkers, the big ones right now. 4 Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, 1 Ugin the Ineffable, and this kind of counts as a Planeswalker, 1 Command the Dreadhorde. These are coming out on turn 5 and 6. Bant Ramp decks can often have big plays on 3, 4, and 5. So the reason that the removal is so important, maintaining control, is look at all the threats that we see in Ken Yukuhiro's deck. I mean, Shalai is certainly an obnoxious one at 4 to deal with, but most of all, Nissa, who shakes the world, Mass Manipulation, Finale of Glory. These are immense threats early on in the game.
And Shalai, I think for toughness, the sizing of it is so important here in this matchup. Not only is it a 4-mana creature where Tyrant Scorn is unable to kill Shalai, Oath of Kaya also can't get it off the battlefield. And Shalai then does a really good job of protecting your Planeswalkers, so your opponents can't even cast Elder Spell to kill Planeswalkers if Shalai is in play.
Now, one thing I want to note, if you look at this deck list, 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Paradise Druids, 4 Incubation Druids, that is a lot of creatures that are generating mana. Often you'll have players just run 8, or maybe just the 4 Llanowar Elves themselves, but given that there was not a lot of sweepers, things that could easily deny all these ramp creatures from going off, this started to become a lot more popular, and there's just so much power in the Mass Manipulation, the Finale of Glory.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the key card in this matchup. It is Mass Manipulation. There's not a lot of counter magic. If you can ramp and play the Mass Manipulation and steal all of the Planeswalkers that the Esper Hero decks play, that's your primary win condition here. Play your ramp cards, play your Nissa, steal all the things.
Now, it's really interesting to note that there are 2 Frilled Mystics in the main deck, and we haven't seen a lot of counter spells due to the prevalence of small Teferi, Teferi Time Reveler. But if you can kill it off, then 2 Frilled Mystics. We've seen big counters completely swing the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the card, if you have 1 or 2 copies in your deck and your opponent knows about it, you kind of force them, you kind of have to keep them honest. It's like, am I supposed to tap out and play this Commander Dreadhorde? It's like, man, but if they play that Frilled Mystic, that's the end of it. So I'm going to have to wait till I get Teferi in play. And just the threat of your opponent having that counterspell can completely shift the dynamics of how a game's played.
This is going to be an extremely difficult matchup for Kai Budde. Excited to see how things are going to pan out. Becca, take it away.
All right, let's bring them to the stage. First up, with 7 Pro Tour wins, yes, 7, the Hall of Famer from Germany, Kai Budde. And the man that's always crafting a unique deck, always bringing surprises, 3rd in Pro Tour Muckhead, it's Ken Yukuhiro! And our casters in the booth are Alias V and Cedric Phillips.
Thank you very much, Becca. That's right, I'm Alias V alongside Cedric Phillips. It is day 2 of the Mythic Championship here in Las Vegas, and we are ready to rock and roll, Cedric. Some great matches so far. I'm looking forward to this one.
I'm absolutely looking forward to watching the German Juggernaut do battle here against Death Snow, as Ken Yukuhiro is named on Magic Online. He is a lot of fun to watch play. Ken loves to brew. He loves to try out all sorts of crazy brand new decks. This is another one of those. His Bant Ramp deck is much different than some of the others we have seen over the course of this weekend. I know that Eric Froelich and some other players are really leaning heavily on Finale of Glory, where we're going to see Ken taking a much more traditional approach in 3 copies of Mass Manipulation, which is going to play a huge role in this Planeswalker-centric matchup, since Budde is bringing a lot of them to the table.
So the plan here for Ken Yukuhiro is going to be, oh, I see a whole bunch of stuff you're playing. Could I play that too?
Absolutely.
Is that it?
I mean, Entrancing
right.
Melody will play a role in things, unquestionably, but Mass Manipulation is the big payoff. If you're Kai, you're hoping to make sure that Ken either doesn't draw that card or isn't able to resolve that card and get a sizable advantage with it. I think that's going to be kind of the whole card that hovers over this matchup. Kai can certainly win things taking an aggressive approach or building an advantage with Planeswalkers, but I actually like Ken's positioning in this matchup, and this is one of the reasons to bring this deck to the table here this weekend in Las Vegas.
So while the players are just getting set up, a tease for you friends at home. After this round, we're going to see a brand new card for M20. So don't go anywhere.
Hate to see that. Hate to see brand new cards for everybody to watch. I kid. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun.
Oh, you just want to sneak peek yourself, don't you?
Maybe. Yeah, they don't even show me some of the things
they haven't even told us what it is.
I don't know what the card is. No one knows what the card is. I think only Paul does, maybe. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Paul 100% knows what the card is, but he's like, can't confirm or deny.
Yeah, he's keeping it very close to the chest here this weekend, this card. But I am looking forward to this matchup. I'm curious about the length of this matchup. I know it's not going to be an early one. You know, we're going to work ourselves pretty deep into the mid game, potentially into the late game as well, as these players do continue to get ready here. You know, again, for Kai, it's about building up an advantage with the Planeswalkers. We've got Teferis, of course. We've got Narset. We've even got that singleton copy of Ugin as well. But don't forget about the ability to have just a quick Hero of Precinct 1 and a couple of interaction spells to start as well. And we can't forget about Thought Eraser.
Nope.
That is a nice card in this matchup as well.
All the cards that seem to be in the opening hands for the Esper control players is either Thought Erasure or it is Teferi. It's like they're always there. As the person on the other side of the table, you're just like, please no turn 2 Thought Erasure. I would like to keep my stuff.
Kai's opening hand looked good enough. I like the mulligan decision here from Ken, taking a look at 6 cards. This hand looks a lot better. A couple of copies of Incubation Druid, a payoff spell there in Hydroid Krasis, and one can make an argument out keeping Teferi on top because Incubation Druid will provide the white mana.
Very much so. Kicking things off, Breeding Pool on the board and Godless Shrine from Kai Budde's side of the board as well. We're going to see the Incubation Druid now on the battlefield. And from Kai Budde's side, is there a consideration to kill that off as quick as possible? We don't want to let Ken Yukuhiro ramp too fast, too quickly, right?
There is some. For Ken's deck, these ramp spells are very, very important, but keep in mind they're actually ramp creatures, not ramp spells. So in previous Magic formats, you've seen cards like Kadama's Reach and Cultivate and Ramping Growth and so on and so forth. And even in this format, you see Growth Spiral. The ramping that takes place in this particular strategy is all creature-centric, so you're able to see something like Tyrant Scorn, one of these mana accelerants, Teferi Time Raveler another, and because Ken missed his land drop last turn, he's actually behind now.
Yeah, he's in a bit of a pickle here. Needs to find that land. He doesn't. He does find Nissa, who really likes land, but she's not going to be in play anytime soon. Teferi Time Raveler now plussing. We're going to see Godless Shrine hit the board, and we're gonna steal this Incubation Druid. I think Kai Budde has sensed that you're a little bit stretched for mana here, so I'm going to make sure you don't play anything else.
Yeah, with a couple of missed land drops here for Ken, Kai's doing a nice job of using his mana every single turn. On turn 2, play Tyrant Scorn. On turn 3, Teferi, bounce your creature, draw a card. On turn 4, Hostage Taker, take your Incubation Druid, potentially replay that Incubation Druid underneath the Hostage Taker. One thing about competitive Magic, especially in Standard, you want to try to use your mana every single turn and be as efficient as possible. Kai has done a magnificent job of that on turns 2, 3, and 4.
Too right, you are. Now we're going to see if this Hostage Taker will swing in for 2 points of damage. We'll just hang back here. No real reason to start swinging just yet, but if not, why not? Maybe Kai does smell blood in the water for Yukuhiro. Let's close this game out quicker than the Esper deck usually would.
Yeah, I like the idea of getting in some points of damage here and then playing an Oath of Kaya as well. Again, just keeping Ken's mana at bay. He's got to draw actual lands. He does have 25 lands in his deck and just did find one, but make him actually peel lands as opposed to letting his creatures live. There's no reason to allow that to occur.
So Teferi Time Raveler is going to kick up the Hostage Taker and return the Incubation Druid to the board. Kai can obviously replay that as it goes back to the hands, not going to exile or anything like that. And he's got a few options here.
So it's not a bad exchange there for Ken. Drawing a third land, being able to play Teferi, bounce the Hostage Taker, get your Incubation Druid back, and then drawing Sun Petal Grove off of the draw from Teferi means that a fourth land is now rolled up. Maybe we see Shalai next turn if Incubation Druid continues to hang around. Maybe we see Nissa who shakes the world. So those draw steps were very, very important there for Ken. Kai, however, has plenty of options. Couple copies of Thought Erasure. He's got Elite Guard Mage, which doesn't play a huge role in things. But we could see this one. I think this is the best of the bunch here in Big Teferi.
So Big T is going to send back the Incubation Druid. Little T is going to plus. Yes, and we're going to possibly see a draw step Thought Erasure, because Shalai will switch off the Thought Erasures, correct?
Well, at this stage of things, Teferi plussing is great, little Teferi, but mana is all tapped from Big Teferi coming onto the battlefield, so we won't see any untapping of things just yet. Shalai joining the fray right now means that there needs to be an answer to this card. Timely 6th mana here for Kai. He'll start by activating Big Teferi to draw a card and make sure he's working with as much information as possible before making a decision. But there's multiple ways to take care of this Shalai. Teferi, Time Raveler can bounce it, Ugin can destroy it. Life is still pretty good here for the German Juggernaut.
Yes, indeed. Hostage Taker, also another option to take the Shalai Voice of Plenty. Let's see what Kai Budde decides to do. It's going to be Ugin the Ineffable.
Again, this is another instance of Kai using all of his mana every single turn, which I like to see. On turn number 5, he just played Teferi, tucked away something, used a little Teferi to go up to 4 counters. Now it's on 5. Ugin doing its thing. Now you're going to get to untap a couple of lands as well. Can draw step, Thought Erasure if he'd like to. So again, Kai is doing everything he wants to do as far as using all of his mana every single turn. It's a good place to be.
Nissa who shakes the world on the board now. We're going to see some lands getting animated. And we're swinging in. Which Planeswalker do we go for first here? Is it going to be Big Teferi?
That's a tough decision to be sure. Big Teferi is maybe the best of the bunch right now, but Ugin is no slouch either. Ugin, however, has used its minus to great effect already. So we're going to see Oath of Kaya deal a little bit of damage because of the attack of a Planeswalker, and we will continue to mosey on along here.
So both players getting their boards established quite nicely here. If you're just joining us, we are looking at Ken Yukuhiro and Kai Budde, both fighting for their spots in Day 3 of the Mythic Championship. Ugin now plussing, going to find Little Teferi off the top of the library underneath the 2/2 Spirit token, and still so many options in this hand. This is a stacked hand for Kai.
This is a nice hand for Kai, but there's a real decision to be made here. To note, he hasn't played a land yet on this turn. If he was able to find a 7th land, maybe say off of Elite Guard Mage, then it could be Elite Guard Mage plus a 3-drop. There's also the ability to just play Hostage Taker and take an Incubation Druid and cast an Incubation Druid. We can't forget about Narset and minusing that and how it works itself into the equation. And lastly, there are 3 copies of Thought Erasure in hand right now as well. So again, Kai, as you see the rope begin to tick away, has a lot of decisions to make on this turn, and it's almost time for him to start making one.
All right, looks like it will be the Thought Erasure. Let's take a look at that hand, Yukuhiro, and it is Entrancing Melody and the Hydroid Krasis.
We will see what Kai's going to select here in just a moment.
Just a few minor technical difficulties. We'll be right back with the game. All right, while we sort that out, as things stand, it is Yukuhiro versus Kai Budde, Esper Hero versus Bant Ramp, and both players off to a pretty good start so far. Good-looking boards, answering each other's threats, but you have to think that Kai Budde's got a little bit of advantage there.
Yeah, I think
able to dig through the hand.
I think Kai's actually working himself towards a pretty sizable advantage, truth be told. Those Thought Erasers are going to start firing off and being able to pick apart things, most notably in the draw step. Teferi Time Raveler, just so that you know, is starting to minus a little bit here. So once we get back into that game, we'll be able to update things for you. But Kai is doing a really nice job of building a sizable advantage because he's using all of his mana every single turn. Again, that's a huge thing in Standard is, turn 2, use your mana. Turn 3, use all of your mana. That was a Teferi. Turn 4, play a Hostage Taker. Used all of my mana again. So a lot did occur in the early stages of the game for Kai. So life is pretty good for him as now we've actually got Ken's side of things, it looks like.
Let's check out Ken Yukuhiro's side of the board. Now we have Paradise Druid, Incubation Druid ×2, and Hydroid Krasis. Nissa, who shakes the world, is still hanging around, so able to create another land creature that can apply some pressure on either of the planeswalkers on the other side of the board.
What's actually kind of unique is, of course, we were coming from Kai's perspective. Coming from Ken's perspective is pretty nice as well, because now we get to see what it feels like to be facing down a couple different planeswalkers. You know, that token that was made there from Ugin, the Manifest, as a lot of people like to call it. But we've got a Nissa. We've got a Hydroid Krasis that's going to be coming down for a lot of mana as well. Now, these mana accelerants in hand, the 2 copies of Incubation Druid and Paradise Druid, they're not all that exciting at this stage of the game. So this Hydroid Krasis is going to be very important, Alias.
Let's see, we're going to draw 3 cards, gain 3 life. Shall I? Another Nissa and Entrancing Melody. Those are all excellent draws off the top of the library.
Yes, I like all of those draw steps. All those are very, very powerful cards, and Entrancing Melody can work itself into the equation a little bit here, but Shall I is also very nice, and I have to imagine that Kai's got some interest in getting this Nissa Who Shakes the World off the battlefield, so a replacement copy isn't so bad either.
Ugin plussing, making another 2/2 Spirit token, finding something off the top of the library. Teferi Time Raveler also plussing, allowing him to play something at instant speed. What that is, we will have to see when we get around to Yukuhiro's turn. This Hydroid Krasis is going to start applying some pressure if there's no answer for it from Kai.
Yeah, you know, a 6/6 in the air is a pretty big card in this matchup. Kai does have answers to this card, but there's not a ton of them, so a large Hydroid Krasis can cause some issues. Thought Eraser going to be fired off here and get a good look at Kai's hand. You can see it at home, these 2 Incubation Druid, the Paradise Druid, Shall I, Nissa, and Entrancing Melody. Tough choice here for Kai.
If we haven't seen the other Thought Erasure, I see 1 in the graveyard there, so he might be out of those. Might be worthwhile taking the Shall I if he does have another way to disrupt the hand of Ken Yukuhiro.
Well, Shall I caused a little bit of problems in the early stages of the game, and as Paul and Sean talked about leading up into this match, it's actually a pretty tough card for Kai to answer. You know, Ugin took care of the first one, but Ugin doesn't have a ton of loyalty on it just right at this second, so you know, maybe the Hostage Taker that I think is looming in Kai's hand might have to be the answer to that Legendary Angel. We'll have to see.
So surveilling the Hero Precinct 1 to the bin, and there we are back to the regular view. Let's take a look at Kai Budde's hand, Elite Guard Mage, Thought Erasure, and Narset, Parter of Veils. Yoinking that Hydroid Krasis away with the Hostage Taker, so no more 6/6 threat in the air for Ken Yukuhiro.
And it looks like we're all caught up now, which is great. As you saw that Hostage Taker take care of the Hydroid Krasis, as you mentioned. And now it's time to get to work on Nissa a little bit here, which I think is pretty smart. Ugin hanging out there on 3 counters, threatening to minus and kill another permanent. So I think Kai is still advantaged, even throughout those technical difficulties.
Yeah, definitely so. Technical difficulties be darned. The players are playing their best Magic this weekend. And we now see the draw step Thought Erasure taking... Is it going to be Shall I? It is indeed. Shall I hits the bin, and we find another Thought Erasure on top of the library for Kai, but it's going to go into the bin as well. What's he digging for?
At this stage of things, I'm not entirely sure if Kai actually needs to find one specific card. It is worth noting that underneath these Ugin Spirit tokens, there is a Teferi Time Raveler, and there's also a copy of Command the Dreadhorde. I would have mentioned Command the Dreadhorde, and that might be a fine find right now, especially because Kai's sitting at 21 life, but I think right now Kai is just kind of trying to push his advantage. He's got a Hydroid Krasis underneath the Hostage Taker, a Narset that can dig deeper, same thing can be said for Elite Guildmage. So I think on the whole, life is pretty good for our player here in Kai Budde, who's looking to move on through this game.
So let's see what Yukuhiro does here now. He's got the Sun Petal Grove up and ready to do battle as the Vigilant 3/3. We might just see him drop all of the all these little mana dorks on the board. Or we're gonna see another Nissa. Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like this.
Down?
Yeah, I kind of like this because right now the blocks here for Kai aren't great. It's a 2/3 and a 2/2. Nissa's making 3/3s. Now, we might see Kai just dump all of these mana accelerants onto the battlefield too, as you mentioned, or at least as many as he can. But this is kind of interesting from Yukuhiro's perspective on how he wants to continue to move forward with this turn.
It's a very different matchup against the Esper Hero deck, knowing that you don't really have to worry about Wraths. So, yeah, just throw all the bodies down and see what sticks, I suppose, is the plan here from Ken Yukuhiro. Now pressuring the Planeswalkers. Ugin got 2 tree people coming at him, and the Hinterland Harbor is thinking about where he wants. Nope, everyone at Ugin?
I guess it
All right,
depends
they're
on
just switching
exactly,
around a little bit.
yeah, which lands want to go where. I think is actually pretty important here because of the mana sources and all that good stuff. Couple Oath of Kaya triggers is going to bring Ken down to 13. That might play a role in things over the course of this game because it's less work for Kai to do when trying to close out the game, assuming he gets to that point. However, these Planeswalkers right now are certainly under duress, so Kai has to really consider tendering a double block here, which is something I'm sure he doesn't really like the idea of doing. But that card underneath that 2/2 is Command the Dreadhorde, so it's not so bad.
That's kind of a dead giveaway. It's like, yeah, all right, my Planeswalkers are going to be a little dead here. Oh, no, wait, we blocked the Teferi. Right, that Untitled Grove was blocking the Teferi, or attacking the Teferi, so we got Command the Dreadhorde now in the hand of Kai Budde. There's some goodies in the graveyard for him. He can have a Nissa, he can have an Ugin. It's just spoiled for choice.
Yeah, and it looks like he might be getting a Teferi back too, because I think he's going to be minusing this one to place it into the graveyard since it has 3 counters. So with Kai at 25, we should see a pretty large Command the Dreadhorde right now with him getting back a ton of stuff, including Shalai as well. So this should be pretty good for the German Juggernaut.
Oh, yes. What we got? Shalai. We've got some Nissa, maybe a little bit of Teferi. Let's top it off some Ugin. Just don't KO yourself here, Kai.
Yeah, that's the big one. You know, he's able to deal himself quite a bit of damage,
Yeah.
but you know, Ugin's a 6-mana spell. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, is a 5-mana spell, so we're looking at 11. You add in Nissa, you're looking at 16. All of a sudden, you fall from 25 to a lot lower. All of a sudden, I believe down to 9. So
yeah.
this gets a little bit scary. You obviously want it all because we're all greedy Magic players,
Oh, yeah.
but I don't think we get to have it all in this instance. So Kai is going to take his time here with the decision. Which cards matter, which cards don't, and how low is he willing to go? It looks like he's willing to go all the way down to 6 and get back. Oh, you know, just 4 Planeswalkers.
Yeah, just 4. It's fine. Super Friends assembled now. That's a sight you don't really want to see if you are on Ken Yukuhiro's side of the board, but if you are the Esper hero player, you are quite happy with how things are shaping up here as we go into the late game of this matchup.
I'm curious if Kai is going to bounce with Teferi his own Oath of Kaya or not. It looks like he isn't going to. We're going to see Nissa make a 3/3 as well. You have to imagine this kind of advantage is sizable and just a little too much for Ken to overcome. Kai being down to 6 is a little bit risky, but Elite Guard Mage is going to bring him back up to 9.
Yep, and as we know with the Esper players, don't really care too much about life. That's not the resource, that's not the battle or the race we're trying to win. But Entrancing Melody off the top for Yukuhiro, but unfortunately he hasn't got that much mana to deal with here.
Yeah, the tough part here for the Entrancing Melody is I don't think there's a great target. You know, taking Elite Guild Mage or Hostage Taker is just kind of whatever. Sometimes with Entrancing Melody, you're able to take something like a Manalish Marshal or just a very impactful creature. At this stage of things, you'd love to be able to take one of those Planeswalkers, which you can't really do. So I'm curious to see how we're going to go about using the Entrancing Melody, because I think that's going to be the turn.
I'll take that land back. Oh, not back. I'll just take your stuff. Haha. There you go. Revenge for the Bant Ramp deck. Just a little bit. Not that much. It's no Command the Dreadhorde, but by golly, it helps. So we're drawing Elite Guard Mage for Kai Budde. Firmly in control of this matchup with 4 Planeswalkers on the board. He's just spoiled for choice. He's like, I'm going to poke that, I'll poke that, I'll poke that, we'll make that, we'll do that. It's just so much stuff he can do.
Yeah, I mean, right now with these 4 Planeswalkers on the battlefield, I think that's kind of just step 1 for every single turn is just, you know, click on each one of these.
Yeah.
Let's start there,
Yeah.
and then we'll kind of analyze our hand about everything else that we want to do this turn. He did take the opportunity to deploy a copy of Hero of Precinct 1, and now I think we're going to see Hydroid Krasis. So even though Kai went down to 6, and that is a pretty low life total, the ability to just gain a lot of life back with the combination of Oath of Kaya, Elite Guild Mage, and of course the Hydroid Krasis that was taken via Hostage Taker means that Kai should be good to go. He'll be able to win this one over time, and even a top deck copy of Mass Manipulation I don't think will matter very much.
It's not going to help all that much, considering there's just so much on Kai's side of the board. Elite Guard Mage swinging in for 2 in the air, and the 3 from the Godless Shrine, taking Yukuhiro down to 8. Teferi untapping those 2 lands. Replacement Teferi's aplenty in the hand of Kai Budde, as well as a Narset Hostage Taker. And Yukuhiro not drawing anything useful that turn.
No, the combination of the flyers here, you got the 4/4 Hydroid Krasis, the 2/3 Elite Guild Mage, and then of course the Oath of Kai that was just drawn should equal lethal. We could also just see Kai decide to use the Attack All button, my favorite button
Oh yeah, I like
on
that
Magic
button.
Arena. and be able to cross the finish line here. So this is not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last time here this weekend, that we have seen the power of Command the Dread Horde. A lot of players, Esper players included, are playing just, a stray copy. For Kai, he's got one main deck copy, but that one of is not an accident. It's not great in multiples, but when you do find the one in certain situations, it's a game winner, as we saw once again here.
All right, so it's not an attack all, but it's still a pretty good attack.
I frown on that.
You frown on that?
Yeah, I don't
You
frown
tell
on
him
that.
about that afterwards and see how that goes.
Oh, I'm going to bring it up.
Oh, dear. It's going to be a battle of juggernauts, I think. Oh, and here we go. That is Oath of Kaya for lethal, I believe, unless something magical happens, which is not the case here. We're going to keep that one, and we're going to ping you for 3. Ken Yukuhiro taking the loss there. Kai Budde up a game. One more for him, and then he's good to carry on in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, for Ken, it was just too slow of a start. Man Accelerants being dealt with on every single step of the way by Kai with, of course, the Teferi Time Raveler bouncing the Incubation Druid and then Hostage Taker taking it momentarily. And that was just too much for Ken to overcome because his mana that game was dependent on creatures as opposed to actual lands. So that's one of the nice things about Kai's deck. He's able to interact favorably with those Mana Accelerants. He's got copies of Tyrant Scorn, Oath of Kaya, Teferi Time Raveler, and Hostage Taker. The tough thing here is that this matchup is still somewhat difficult for him because Mass Manipulation is always looming, so I think he's going to want to bring in ways to handle that kind of card. Dovin's Veto, I'm sure, is somewhat appealing. I think Nar said trying to find a card like that might be appealing. And the Elder Spell, which he's clicked on at least one, has multiple targets here in Nissa, Who Shakes the World, and Teferi Time Raveler.
You also see the Kaya's Wraths coming in from the sideboard because, as we saw, so many creatures for Ken Yukuhiro, so... Is that in his contemplations when he's sideboarding? Is he thinking, okay, yeah, there's going to be some Wraths in my future, so...
Well, I think Ken knows that these are going to be coming in. Obviously, these players have access to each other's deck lists. They're going to take their time when it comes to sideboarding, but you got to remember, this ramp deck, traditional ramp decks in Magic, if you think about maybe the modern format or some older formats, they do it via spells. Rampant Growth, Kadama's Reach, Cultivate, Explore, Growth Spiral, so on and so forth. You place an additional land onto the battlefield to do your thing. The kind of deck that Ken is playing, his ramping is taking place via creatures. Llanowar Elves, Paradise Druid, Incubation Druid are all 4 of. That means that you can blow up the creatures like we saw in Game 1, and Kaya's Wrath can do it with just one spell, taking care of multiple Mana Accelerants, setting Ken's development back in a big way.
So turn 4 is going to be where we cross fingers if we are Ken Yukuhiro.
A little bit,
Please
absolutely.
Don't kill all my stuff. Taking a look at the opening hands now. 5 lands, a Duress, and a D-Spark for Kai Budde. Yukuhiro keeping his hand. That looked like a snap keep. 2 land, 3 Incubation Druids. So they are ready to rock and roll. They're like, put me in, Mr. Yukuhiro. I am going to make you mana.
Yeah, this
Starting things off.
is the kind of hand that Ken is definitely going to keep. He's got 3 Mana Accelerants. He's got 2 payoff cards. One is his best one, of course, with Mass Manipulation. Another one does a nice job of bridging the gap there with Hydroid Crisis. So Ken's going to keep this hand every single time. He's going to hope that maybe some of his draw steps, are in lands like the Glacial Fortress. That was his first draw step of the game. So this isn't a bad start, but discard can pick this hand apart pretty easily where you say, I'll take Hydroid Crisis, I'll take Mass Manipulation, and then your deck has to actually cough up another big spell. Otherwise, you just have all of this mana and nothing to do with it.
Yeah, you were talking about Haymakers earlier in the match, and the Hydroid Crisis and Mass Manipulation are certainly 2 of those.
Love Kai's selection there with the Thought Erasure. Of course, he'll get to Surveil. Looks like he put a land into the graveyard, but, getting rid of a Hydroid Crisis there is saying, hey, you need to draw another payoff card. Unfortunately for Kai, it looks like Ken did in the Nissa Who Shakes the World, but
he's got answers.
Yeah, I think Duress is going to cut that up.
Yeah, unfortunately, Duress is going to get rid of Nissa Who Shakes the World for Yukuhiro. He is running out of cards in hand. You know that question, this happens in Paper Magic a lot. You always get the cards in hand from your opponent.
Yep.
And it's like, why do you want to know? And you're just sitting there with, an empty hand under the table.
I don't have much going on. Don't mind me.
Yeah. Just you focus on your own game. I'm fine. It's fine. It's really not fine half the time, but yeah.
This is where the Kaya's Wrath actually works itself into the equation, too, that you talked about during sideboarding, because Kai's done a nice job of picking apart his hand. He's taken a lot of his payoffs. Mass Manipulation right now isn't a payoff at all because it has nothing to take.
Yep.
So now if you're Ken, you can adapt the Incubation Druid and get in here for a couple points of damage. That's totally fine, and that's more mana for the Mass Manipulation as well. But Kai can just say, if I draw a Mass Removal spell, I kill all of your stuff. You have a Mass Manipulation that you can't even cast.
Yes. So the plan here for Yukuhiro, go fast, smack face, pray for no Kaya's Wrath.
Pretty much.
Teferi Hero of Dominaria off the top for Kai Budde. So 2 lands time. Big T is going to hit the board and cause some havoc. Do we get rid of the mass manipulation here?
Well, that's an interesting question, I think, at this stage of things. So Kai knows about it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about it at home. We know about it here in the booth. Is it time to fire off the duress? It looks like the answer is yes. So this just means that right now, Kai is working with perfect information outside of whatever can top deck, and he drew a doozy.
Ooh, this is a doozy indeed. We've seen Nissa, who shakes the world, knock it out of the park for several players this weekend. Now Ken is just looking at it. He's been like, okay, you need to help me win this. I'm going to put you on the board. Please stay, and please help me win.
Yeah, the big question, I think, from Ken right now is just how is he going to go about casting it? Which lands does he use? Which mana accelerants does he use to be able to cast this card and get the most out of it? If Kai has a Dovin's Veto, there's really nothing he can do about it. So it looks like he's going to adapt an Incubation Druid. That'll give him access to 6 mana. And he's actually just going to attack.
Yeah,
wow,
okay.
this is a little surprising.
I kind of like it, though, because we obviously know that there's an Elder Spell and there's a D-Spark, so maybe Yukuhiro is just like, okay, the odds of him having one of these cards to deal with Nissa are pretty high, so just keep attacking with the creatures and hope he doesn't draw the Kai's Wrath.
I'm a little surprised to see him not deploy the Planeswalker. Looks like he's setting up for something a little bit later in the game. He is the expert of this archetype, of course, making a deep run into this tournament. It is a surprising decision there from old Death Snow. We'll see if it's going to work out.
Little T hitting the board, sending back the adapted Incubation Druid, drawing a Hallowed Fountain. So we still got D-Spark, Elder Spell. Next turn we'll probably see Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Is this going to be Nissa's turn?
So Negate was
Negate's pretty good.
Negate can be good.
Yeah.
He's got to get that Teferi Time Raveler off the battlefield right now, which he does have the ability to do just by attacking with Incubation Druid. Or if he deploys Nissa, that Nissa land that's animated can take care of the Teferi Time Raveler as well. So I think Ken's going to shift his focus a little bit here toward taking care of the Teferi Time Raveler and actually turn Negate back on, which makes it actually a good draw.
Let's see how Yukuhiro proceeds. We're going to go to attacks. No, we're still in the first main phase. He's trying to adapt this Incubation Druid. I think he's having issues with the auto tapper, perhaps.
Yeah,
It misbehaves sometimes.
I'm curious if he's looking to adapt or if he's just looking to deploy a Nissa here. Again, he's got to think about the sequencing, and he can get the most out of his mana on this particular turn.
There we go. All right, he does have manual tap on. Good man. All right, so Nissa, who shakes the world, is down on the battlefield. She's going to reanimate a land, and I think we're going to get rid of Little T here. But first, let's play this Incubation Druid, get it back on the board. Keeping up that negate. I kind of like that. Keep the negate up, so in case there is a Wrath, everything's safe.
Well, so long as you take care of the Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah.
You got to do that first.
Got to do that first, so he's got that covered with the hasty tree people. So Forest is going to take care of Teferi. Then we're going to see Big T or Kai's Wrath if Kai Budde. He's just call it Kai's Wrath. Can we do that?
You can now.
Yes, cool. All right. Hero Precinct 1 is the draw. It is not the Wrath he was hoping for.
What's nice about the way that Ken has sequenced everything, and which is why his turn took a little while and he actually had to use one of his timeouts here in Arena, is he did it in such a fashion that he left enough mana available to adapt as well. The Nissa 3/3 land taps for 2 green. Temple Garden's going to give you an additional green, and then Hinterland Harbor will give him 5 total mana to be able to adapt or be able to cast Negate. So I understand why it took him a minute to make sure that he had enough mana to do everything. Here's a Despark.
D-Spark is going to get rid of Nissa, who shakes the world, but before that, no, we'll just see a Negate. All right, so Negate fired off, making sure to keep Nissa safe. He will be at risk of a Wrath now, but we have an Elder Spell to follow it up, so Nissa is out of the equation for the time being.
Yeah, Kai having to take a little bit of damage to actually play that Elder Spell by playing a Godless Shrine untapped is a little bit painful, but hello.
But redrawing Nissa, who shakes the world, she has said, you know what, Yukuhiro, you need me, I am here. I'm going to shake all the world.
Yeah, this
Maybe
was
not like that, but you know.
This was a really nice draw from Ken.
That's going to be such a feels bad for Kai. He's going to see, oh, goodness, I took so many resources to kill that, and you just top-decked it? That's magic for you. That happens. Here we go. Nissa, who shakes the world, ×2. Is this the second one or the third one? This is the second.
This is the third one this game. Yeah. Because Kai did such a nice job, pardon me, of just poking holes in Ken's hand with the discard. But the one thing that discard does not do, as oftentimes Magic players like to say, is it cannot stop the top of the deck.
Oh, no.
If you are Kai, you were hoping for Ken to draw some more lands or some more relevant spells, but he's drawing a combination of Nissas and a timely negate to get himself back into this game and ideally back into this match.
Look at Kai's face. He was just like, Not bad.
Yep.
Not bad at all.
Yep.
All right, so Nissa is back in action. She is reanimating, well, she's animating Hinterland Harbor, and we're swinging in for 9 points of damage. We gotta block, Kai. You gotta block some of these big things now swinging in at your face. It's down to 3. That's not where you want to be. Watery Grave off the top. Teferi, can Teferi even help him out here?
Well, we're going to start here, that's for sure. You do get a body. You can potentially tuck something away. Maybe there's a great card that Kai can draw towards that we're not thinking of. So you start there. It's a Glacial
that's
Fortress.
A land.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Is he going for the Wrath there? Because he would have had the mana available for it. No, but he only untaps. He doesn't have little T to help him out. Land with the top breeding pool. We are going to pump up some incubation druids. We're going to animate some land, and we're going to swing in for Ken Yukuhiro to tie things up.
Yep, this one seems pretty elementary at this point. Just got to get 3 points of damage across with 5 3-power attackers. That won't be hard, and that means we're headed to a third and final one here momentarily. Good match so far.
This is an excellent game. This is the kind of magic I like to see.
Yeah. I mean, timely top decks in situations like this, everybody says sometimes you got to get a little bit lucky when playing competitive Magic. All these players are great, so sometimes luck is what can set you apart. For Yukuhiro, it was a lot of timely draw steps. So many copies of Nissa, a timely negate as well. Everything lining up very well here for Ken, but Kai will be on the play here for Game 3.
Is there any consideration for Kai to bring in a few more Oaths of Kaya just to kill any reanimated trees?
I mean, yes and no. You know, he's got just one main deck copy in after sideboard right now. He might change that up because he's on the play as opposed to being on the draw. And those can do a nice job of killing mana accelerants much better on the play as opposed to being on the draw. So maybe he wants to bring another one in. And maybe he thought about that for a moment, but I think he's pretty happy with this configuration at this stage.
So let's take a look at Yukuhiro's side of the board. What do we do for this next matchup, the final one?
Well, he's thinking about at least one more copy of Entrancing Melody coming back in. We just saw him click on that. What he is doing here after sideboard is he's taking a very creature-centric approach and hoping that will work out well for him. He's still going to leave his payoffs in his deck like Mass Manipulation because it is so powerful if he's able to get that going.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's relying on that to win the game, where in the first game he really doesn't have much of a choice.
So Kai Budde deciding to be on the play, opening up with 3 lands. We find that Kaya's Wrath, Teferi, and Elder Spell, that's going to be a keep. From both sides, we've got 3 mana dorks in the hand of Yukuhiro. Not too shabby.
It's a pretty easy keep, I think, here for both players. The only bad thing here for Ken is that his lands are slow check lands, and nothing that enters the battlefield untapped on its own right now. Breeding Pool's not a bad draw because I think maybe we'll see 2 Land or Elves. Maybe. I mean, it could be a Paradise Druid. He's got to think about this decision.
Which would be better because he ramps better with 2 Llanowar Elves, correct?
Yeah, I like the idea of playing 2 Llanowar Elves here. The downside of this, if you're Kai, is now you go land Teferi Time Raveler, bounce one of these, and then the other Llanowar Elf can finish it off. But you might be okay with this exchange because if the other Llanowar Elves finishes off, then Ken replays Llanowar Elves and a Paradise Druid, and he throws all of his creatures into the maw of your Kaya's Wrath.
Oh, yeah.
So this might be an exchange that Kai is trying to lead Ken into. And then once you blow up all those mana accelerants, Nissa, who shakes the world, is nowhere near as scary.
Yeah, because if there wasn't a Kai's Wrath in Kai's hand, Kai's Wrath, I'm going to call it that, yeah, we'd see a turn 3 Nissa who shakes the world. That's like the dream of all of these ramp decks, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Such a crazy card. I got 2 of her in my pre-release.
Oh, must be nice.
It was nice.
You better
She never showed up.
No, stop. No way.
Yeah, I got her once.
Wow.
What happened?
Kai plussing the Teferi. He's got different plans here.
Oh, turn 3, Nissa who shakes the world. Heck yeah. Teferi, he might be thinking like, oh, crud, what did I do?
Okay, so...
But it's okay. That's fine.
All right, so now that I think about this a little more, this is interesting. There were 2 lines of play. There was the line of play I mentioned where you minus the Teferi, you draw your card, Llanowar Elves finish off the Teferi, and you hope that Ken replays the Llanowar Elves and maybe another mana accelerant, and Kaya's Wrath cleans everything up. This way, what you're able to do is you have a copy of the Elder Spell in your hand, but more importantly, you can plus little Teferi up to 3 and then threaten playing Kaya's Wrath at instant speed. I'm curious if Kai is leaning towards that player, if he's just going to cast the Elder Spell. Okay, so he looks like he's just going to cast the Elder Spell and put some more counters onto his Teferi, maybe with the hope that Ken doesn't have a backup Nissa at this stage. What I think he's really trying to do is he's trying to maximize his Kaya's Wrath to get it all.
Yeah.
To get literally everything.
Yeah, get all the land, all the creatures.
Yeah. Now he's going to bounce the land, set back Ken's development a little bit at this stage. So now Teferi is wide open for an Llanowar Elves attack. So what the big thing here is trying to get into the head of Kai and trying to figure out what he's trying to set up, because he's trying to lead Ken down a path that this Kai's Wrath is absurd.
We might see it. Here comes Nissa, who shakes the world ×2. The animated breeding pool is going to take care of Teferi Time Raveler. And this Kai's Wrath is looking pretty tasty. Oh, even better.
Okay, so it's getting better. It's getting better now.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how much better it's getting, because the problem here is if you Kai's Wrath now, there's still a Nissa left on the battlefield.
Yes.
And so what is your way to manage that? How much greedier do you want to get with this Kai's Wrath? I'm imagining you don't want to get too much greedier, so clearing up all of those creatures in the land is not bad.
Well, there is the line of Teferi Hero of Dominaria, tuck the Nissa, and then when the Nissa's drawn, if you find a way to instant speed Thought Rage, or maybe you could get rid of it.
Yeah, that's not bad. The issue I have here now with how Kaya sequence things a little bit is if you play Teferi and you manage to tuck the Nissa, then the land takes care of the Teferi.
Yes.
And so you haven't actually drawn a card off your Teferi, and you delayed the Nissa for a couple of turns, which might be okay. We might see Kai go towards Narset plus Thought Eraser this turn. He's got a lot of options still, and for what it's worth, his life total is very, very high at 17. So let's try to see what the German Juggernaut wants to do here on this turn.
Looks like Big Teferi is going to enter the battlefield, put his mark on this match, and tuck Nissa back into the library of Ken Yukuhiro into the 3rd spot. Isolated Chapel on the board. Big Teferi is at risk of being deaded, and that's exactly what the Sun Petal Grove is going to do. So, Big T in the bin. We're going to follow that up with a land, and back to you, sir. Duress and Thought Erasure able to disrupt the hand of Ken Yukuhiro. Not hitting anything amazing, though, because Entrancing Melody is not doing anything. It's basically just a blank card right now.
It's an interesting sequence. At the end of the day, you know, I don't know if I 100% agree with how Kai got to this spot, but he is at this spot, and it's not really a bad thing. Once he fires off this Thought Eraser and sees that Ken is not working with anything and knows that Nissa is not next turn, but the following turn, he kind of knows what's coming.
Here we go.
In that regard, Kai's actually doing pretty good right now. I'm curious to see if he wants to leave this Teferi on top of his deck or not, and if he does leave it on top, is he going to play Narset?
Very curious to see Teferi, of course, allowing the instant speed sorcery plays, which could be quite useful for Kai. Looks like it's going to stay there, and we're going to see nothing more from him this turn.
I was very curious if he wanted to play that Narset or not. Now, Mass Manipulation is a pretty nice draw. Kai doesn't know about that card. He knows about the Sun Petal Grove in hand. He knows about the Nissa that's on top of the deck. The one card he doesn't know about is Mass Manipulation, but if you take a look at Ken's mana, it's not even a real threat right now. It could be a threat later on down the game, but it isn't something to really be concerned with at this stage of things.
Narset digging through the library, finding 2 Tyrant Scorn and another Narset Parter of Veils. What's the pick here gonna be for Kai?
Well, what I think Kai is trying to set up right now is the ability to play Teferi plus Duress in the same turn, Duress in the draw step, take the Nissa. He'll see the Mass Manipulation, realize that Ken can't really cast it, so it's not a huge threat immediately, and then that land will probably be able to take care of something else. Tyrant Scorn can, of course, take care of that land the following turn, or you can get another copy of Narset if you'd like, because you know that one of your Planeswalkers is going to die. Again, I'm not sure I 100% agree with how we've gotten to this spot, but Kai is in a favorable position right now, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. He's just got to continue to sequence things in such a fashion that it's going to lead him to a victory.
Rightly so, Cedric. Taking the backup Narset.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that too. I think he's all right with life and trees and things, so Little T gonna send back this land. No more threats on the board for Ken Yukuhiro. And no real way to get rid of the Nissa here now.
Yeah, so that's a little concerning right now from Kai, because now you've allowed the Nissa to resolve. The
How do we
Nissa's
get rid of
in.
the Nissa
Yeah,
now?
now how do we take care of a Nissa? Now, do we have answers for Nissa in our deck? Of course. We've got the Elder Spell, we've got Big Teferi, we've got ways to manage this. Ken's going to take care of the Narset, even though he knows there's a backup copy in Kai's hand. So Teferi is going to plus at some point, but I think Narset is the best place to start this particular turn.
So Narset entering the battlefield. We're gonna immediately activate the ability. Take a look. Thought Erasure. Not too shabby.
Well,
D-Spark.
D-Spark's the better card, because it's the answer to Nissa.
Yeah. Still just contemplating it, though.
Yeah, that's,
just in case.
So that solves the Nissa problem. And then we still have the ability to Duress in the draw step.
Yes.
And now we have to solve, if we're Kai, you have to solve this 3/3 Sun Petal Grove problem.
Yes.
And then you're doing okay.
It's not that great when you're being beaten up by lands, huh?
Yeah, it's not the best.
Although, considering Screw and Flood, they beat us up quite often.
This is true. Thought Eraser are going to be able to take care of something. Okay, Ugin's not bad. Ugin's not bad.
He can come up the board, though.
Yep.
Protect against some Sun Petal Grove action.
Yep, you got to remember that Sun Petal Grove does not have trample, so that's not too bad at all.
Sun Petal Grove is going to get rid of the Narset. Here we go. Oogie Woogie, as I like to call him, affectionately.
Out here to boogie?
Yeah, ooh, actually, I like that. I'm going to steal that from you.
Okay.
Mine, copyrighted, thank you.
That's all you. I'll never say it again.
All right, so Ugin is now going to plus gum up the board with little 2/2s, finding a Narset underneath the Spirit token now. And Teferi's is going to keep plussing.
Yep, and
he's happy.
He
Draw
just
step.
he just clicked on Ken's side of the battlefield, so it's going to be a duress in the draw step too. Make sure there's no blowout here with some sort of spell.
You can kind of, ooh,
Well,
hello.
not quite. I mean, knowing your opponent has Frilled Mystic isn't the end of the world.
Yeah, I suppose it's right.
Yep, here comes the predictable chump block with the 2/2. Narset's going to be added to the grip here. So this isn't, I mean, again, Kai has got himself into the stage of the game that he's got to be pretty happy with. And now he's picked up a copy of Teferi Hero of Dominaria. So the Planeswalkers are really starting to flow here, and life is pretty good.
The Super Friends are back in action. We're going to see it. These are all the copies of his superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Every single
individual copies,
yeah. Individual, yeah. So here we go. We are assembling some Super Friends on the board here.
Ah, the whiff.
The whiff? Oh, that doesn't happen very often.
No,
in our
it doesn't.
set. It is always nice when you see that, though, if you're Ken Yukuhiro. It's like, oh, okay, you whiffed. That's fine. Now we are getting rid of this land. Are we? Are we? No, we're thinking about it. No, I would like a card instead, please, library.
And I like this. Picking up a copy of Dispark is totally fine. Untapping a couple lands to be able to cast Dispark is totally fine. And then, of course, you'll have this 2/2 jump in front, potentially. But Entrancing Melody might not make that an option anymore.
So Entrancing Melody can steal the token, but then the card, it's just a, what's that, a Godless Shrine?
Yeah.
It's no biggie. But he doesn't know that. So Yukuhiro might be like, am I about to give him, like, Command the Dreadhorde or something?
Yeah, this isn't, I mean, this is nice insofar as it actually allows Ken to destroy something with the Sun Petal Grove. I guess he can only destroy one thing, so I take that back. He can take care of Narset. Ugin, Big T, and Little T all have too much loyalty to be able to take care of those other three Planeswalkers. So he's just got to take care of Narset. I mean, it's working. It's working. You know, the Jenga board down a little bit. That's one of the 4 Planeswalkers that got to get taken care of.
All right, let's see if we can keep these Planeswalkers deaded. But, you know, with the Esper decks, it's always a case of, well, I'm just going to find the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and then Command the Dreadhorde, and I have them all. Haha. But that's not the case now because we've drawn an isolated chapel off the top of the library. Friends, if you're just joining us, this is Ken Yukuhiro versus Kai Budde, the third of this series between the two, fighting for a place, well, fighting to continue in this tournament. And just a reminder, friends, at the end of this round, we're going to see a brand new card revealed for M20, which is very, very soon around the corner.
Now we're starting to run away with things. Now, if we are Kai, we are starting to run away with things. We got a Hero Precinct 1.
Yeah.
We've taken care of that land. That was a 3/3. That was a minor annoyance. Now we got a Hostage Taker that's going to predictably take something hostage. Frilled Mystic now belongs to Kai. The ability to cast that at instant speed means that he can counter something as well, which is a really big deal, and still has that copy of D-Spark in hand. So if you're a Kai, that turn really took over this game.
Oh, yes. This was a very, very good turn for the German Juggernaut. Tolsum, your friend to Wolves. This is a card we have not seen by anyone else in this tournament.
Yeah, and I'm not sure.
This is Ken Yukuhiro's forte.
I'm not sure we're going to see this resolve either because the Frilled Mystic can be played via the Hostage Taker. So as awesome as that Elf Scout is, the Elf Lizard Wizard in Frilled Mystic looks like it's going to take care of that.
Oh, that's a feels bad. I wanted to see the pupper on the board.
Me and you both, honestly.
He's a
I like
good boy.
Tolsimir quite a bit.
Yeah.
Kai, again, I think he's done a nice job of navigating to this point, if we were to talk to him about do I think he sequenced every single turn optimally? I'm not sure, but I also am not playing the game where I'm watching the game, right? So he's thinking about a lot of different things that I'm not thinking about. At the end of the day, he got to this stage of the game, which is where he needs to get to. And once he's here, I don't want to say it's impossible to lose, but it's pretty darn close. Now you got all these Planeswalkers doing their thing. Hostage Taker did its thing with Frilled Mystic and everything like that. So when you're playing against this Bant Ramp deck, you just have to get here.
Yep.
And then once you get here, which is late in the game with all this stuff in the battlefield and all these cards in hand, it's winner, winner, chicken dinner. And I think Kai is moving on, showing that I know a lot of people thought maybe he was washed up, but he's not washed up.
Not at all. Just a few turns ago, this board looked nothing like this.
No,
it was pretty evens, and then it just snowballed for Kai Budde.
Draw step duress. Yep.
It's just a Temple Garden. That's not going to hurt me. And I think we'll see the concession here from Ken Yukuhiro. Congratulations to Kai Budde. The German juggernaut is on his way. He's carrying on through this tournament. It's going to be a great run from him. I got a good feeling.
I mean, Kai's looking good. I know he likes his deck quite a bit. Very similar to what Brian Braun doing. Brad Nelson and some others are playing here this weekend. And Esper Hero continues to perform quite well. Again, it's kind of these very smart one-ofs in this deck. Ugin the Ineffable, which we saw show up. Command the Dreadhorde, which we, of course, saw show up as well. Around the package that we know works in Hero of Precinct 1, Oath of Kaya, and 11 other Planeswalkers. It's a really good deck.
It is a really good deck, and there's a reason why so many players brought it this weekend, because it can just pummel through so many decks. You don't expect the Esper decks to be the aggressors. You kind of expect them to just sit back and, ultimate Teferi. But no, with the hero and with all of the multicolored spells and all the little itty-bitty tokens, you go wide, you smack face, you're done.
Yeah, it can take care of decks in a lot of different ways. It can play long games against people because of the Planeswalkers. It can interact in the short term as well, as we saw Kai kind of picking apart all those mana accelerants as well with Land of War Elves and Incubation Druids via Tyrant Scorns and Oath of Kaya. So it plays at every stage of the game quite well. There are some decks that can go over the top of it, which is exactly what that ramp deck was trying to do. But as you saw over the course of those 3 games, it can combat those decks as well. That's why it's such a good deck.
Just a reminder, friends, at the end of this round, we are going to see a brand new card from M20. So do not go anywhere. It is going to be a goodie. I can assure you. I haven't seen it. We call that a
tease.
But I'm going to tell you it's a goodie.
We call that a tease. That makes you at home, I'm talking to, that makes you stay with us.
Yes.
Because it's going to be at the end of the round, but you don't know when.
Yeah.
So you have to stay with us. And also, you don't know what it is, but you want to know what it is. That's why we keep teasing it. And we're going to be, I know, going over to Kai here in just a moment so we can talk about his win, which I'm excited to hear. I'm excited to hear from Kai. Again, it's funny to say, because we kind of say this in the booth kind of casually. He's won 7 Pro Tours. He's won 7, that's a lot of those.
That is a lot.
Most people don't win 7 tournaments in their entire life. He's won 7 Pro Tours. He's going to chat with Becca. I'm excited to hear about it.
All right, Becca, over to you, madame.
Hi there, I'm here with Kai Budde. Kai, you just won a very intense match against Ken Yukuhiro and went 3 games long. Talk me through how you were feeling in that last game.
I'm feeling pretty lucky because I played very badly in the last game. I saw the line I should have taken the second I okayed what I was doing. I knew there was a Nissa on top of his library, and I could have +1 to my small Teferi and duress it in his draw step. The second I -3 to my small Teferi, I was like, no, that's not what I was going to do. But I got, afterwards, I got pretty lucky and drew a couple more Planeswalkers and then eventually overwhelmed him. But yeah, I probably shouldn't have won that game.
Well, even the best makes a misstep here and there. Let's go back and talk about how your path has been in this day 2. So first you played Shahar Shenhar against Mono Red. How'd you feel about that matchup?
So I think the matchup is slightly positive to me, but Shahar is also a pretty lucky guy. I was pretty lucky yesterday, but that luck clearly stopped in that game. I never cast any of my good cards, and he just completely... I think the time we needed to set up our computers was longer than the match. He literally won in 4 minutes or something. So I got completely destroyed. And then in the second round, I played against Brian Braun, who actually built the deck.
Yeah.
It's a bit unfortunate having to play him, but then my luck came back in full swing, and I drew very, very well. And I beat him almost equally quick in 2 games.
Yeah, it was hard to watch you beat him with his own deck, and you probably may have an opportunity to play against Brad Nelson going forward, who has the same deck. Explain the face you just made about that one.
So I think these guys are just way better at these mirror matches because I've maybe played 50 games with this deck, but like maybe 10 of them were an Esper mirror match. And these, like, Brian has probably played 500 to 1,000 games with this deck. I mean, usually it's reasonably simple to play, but like especially with the card Elder Spell, there's sometimes pretty complicated lines, which for them it's just natural, and for me, I mean, I'm missing the obvious on-board stuff, so like I can easily miss the more complicated stuff too. Yeah, I mean, I would prefer to play anyone else but Brad, I think.
Well, you've done very, very well so far, and we're excited to see what else you do going forward. Thank you, Kai Budde, for speaking to me. We're going to take a quick break and then come back at you with more magic.
Heavy, but down to 2 life. That will do it.
I am Andrea Mengucci, I'm from Italy. I am 25 and I'm a professional Magic player. Since I was a kid, like I started playing Magic at the beach. It's basically been the only game that I've been playing. I wasn't really good at sports, so I was just more like playing on the computer, but always Magic.
You just became the first champion of the Mythic Invitational!
So I finished my study last year and I was like, okay, great. 2010 will be my professional year. I'll be playing professionally Magic.
Hi, I'm Martin Uzo. I'm from the Czech Republic, and I play a lot of Magic. In high school, my friends were playing this interesting game, and I just, I was interested, so I asked them what it is, and it's this, cool strategy game, and like before I knew it, I was buying packs and just like had a huge collection and everything, and as the time went by, I started playing tournaments and went to PTQs and whatever, and now we're here. When I got the phone call, it was an exciting moment. It was just like, there's a lot of things running through your head, and you're like, oh, we finally made it. This is great. This is all we ever wanted.
My name is Luis Salvato. I'm from Argentina. The first time my brother bought some Portal decks. We learned how to play, and then 10 years ago I'm playing professional level.
Faxon says that's enough to kill me. Luis Salvato is your...
My family and my friends support me a lot. When I found out that I was in the MPL, that I was selected for that, everyone, mostly me, was super excited about this.
My name is William Jensen, nicknamed Huey, and I'm here today because I'm a member of the Magic Pro League. I first started playing Magic in 1997. Didn't take me very long to become competitive and start going to tournaments. I was going to weekly tournaments on a couple weeknights a week and even Saturdays, and I really liked the atmosphere, and I definitely found somewhere where I felt like I belonged.
Welcome back to the Mythic Championship here in Las Vegas. I'm Alias V alongside Cedric Phillips, and we have a cracker of a match to bring you, friends. It's going to be John Rolf versus Raphael Levy. And before we get into that game, we heard from Raphael. Let's see what he had to say.
I'm Raphael Levy, and I'm from France. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm the Hall of Famer. I'm the one with 1 million Pro Tours. I'm here to take everybody down. So the main thing is to stay focused. I know I can think, I know I can play well, so this match is not going to be a problem.
Strong words there from Raphael Levy. Let's see if he can back it up as we jump into Game 3 between John Rolf and Raphael Levy. It is Esper Control versus Mono Red Aggro. One apiece for each of these players. Let's get right into it.
So Raph loves to play aggressive strategies. Sometimes he sideboards into bigger, slower strategies and aggressive decks. And that is kind of being exhibited here by the treasure map on turn number 2, showing that he's willing to play a little bit of a longer game. What's kind of funny is that John Rolf has had so much of his success over the past handful of years with mono red strategies, more more based around Hazoret the Fervent and Glorybringer in the previous block, but Rolfe knows his way around a ton of mountains, so he's going to have to try to beat them to move on here.
Legion Warboss hits the board, and the hasty little critter is going to swing in for 1 point of damage. Searcher Azcanta allowing John Rolf to... Oh, wait, hang on.
Well,
there was just a missed
yeah, so with Legion
announcement.
Warboss, you have to announce that you're going to play it before you actually do play it so that you can set a stop and respond to it. Fortunately for Rolfe, he was actually tapped out because he deployed a search for his Kanta. But in the future, it is important to make sure they have that communication clarified so we can fix that problem if it is one that does arise. So that's why you saw the two players talk back and forth very quickly.
No worries there, though. We're going to continue as planned, and we're going with Drowned Catacomb, Cry the Carnarium, getting rid of both the creatures on the board. We've got a stop in the draw step for Raphael Levy. Is he going to take a peek at the top of his deck? Let's see. Well, another mountain. That's a lot of mountains in hand. There's not that great, right?
So it is a lot of mountains right now for Raph. You know, he's got a couple copies of Treasure Map, which means, pardon me, that he can activate both of them. Yeah. The idea here is to play a much longer game. There are some players that are not ready to play against Treasure Map, transforming into Treasure Cove, bringing a bunch of treasures along with it, and drawing a ton of cards. The idea here, if you're Raph, is I can go as long as you can go, and I can answer most of your stuff, and then ideally burn you out of the game. It's an interesting strategy after sideboard. They are in the third game, so perhaps it worked once for him already. We'll see if it can work potentially a second time.
So Treasure Map is not something you typically see in the mono-red deck, correct?
In the sideboard, you do see it sometimes. Players kind of come and go with it. The plan here is Treasure Map in a combination of Fight with Fire. Fight with Fire is somewhat flexible because, one, it can take care of Lyra Dawnbringer, but two, you can, of course, deal 10 damage to your opponent. And if you find 2 copies, all of a sudden you've dealt 20 damage to your opponent. And what you're doing here is you're using a very large strategy with Experimental Frenzy, Chandra, which we're seeing here, which is going to be scried to the top via Treasure Map. And you're saying, you know what, all of these small creatures that you kill with Kaya's Wrath, those are gone. I'm not doing any of that nonsense. All of my spells are large and in charge.
I like that plan. I like the one-punch kill, as it were. So now we're going to see Chandra Fire Artisan on the board. She's going to exile something which we won't see played, not yet. So that Lightning Strike is going to be in exile, and we're not going to see it cast. In response, though, we got the D-Spark going to take care of Chandra. She's in exile now, too. And Raphael is just left with Treasure Mapping it up until he gets a target for Lightning Strike.
Yeah, it's incredibly important that these treasure maps actually transform and do their thing. You saw John actually put a copy of Moment of Craving into the graveyard with the Search for his Kanta. That kind of highlights how Raph has changed his deck. Against a lot of mono-red players, you would immediately leave that on top of your deck. It would kill a creature, would gain you some life, so on and so forth. That's not what these games are about after sideboard. So now John's got to make the decision of, do I play Teferi as my 5-mana threat, or do I play Lyra Dawnbringer as my 5-mana threat of choice?
It's going to be Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Probably just plussing here, drawing a card, untapping 2 lands on the end step. What did we find? We found Little T. So Big T and Little T are going to hang out pretty soon, I think. And we might be transforming one of these treasure maps on the upkeep.
I think that's pretty important for Raph right now. One of them has 2 counters, the other has 1, so being able to transform one of these into a treasure cove and get your treasures is actually a pretty nice place to be. But again, these Esper decks, they do like to go long. That's actually where they feel most comfortable. So for a mono red deck to say, you know what, I'm happy to try to go along with you into this deep late game, it can be a little bit risky. Sometimes it looks a little bit foolish, but sometimes the Esper players don't have the sideboard tools necessary to beat this strategy. So it's an interesting take here from Raph, and it might be working.
Viashina Pyromancer off the top, going to help deal with this Teferi in conjunction with a Lightning Strike. So Big T, unfortunately, not going to get to hang out with Little T, as I predicted. Tough.
And see, I like that, because what Viashina Pyromancer has done here is it's done some work. It dealt some damage to to Big Teferi, and Lightning Strike in combination with Viashina Pyromancer have gotten the job done. Now, if a removal spell were to take care of Viashina Pyromancer, you'd say, okay, I don't really care. It did its job. I got, enough of the damage dealt to Teferi to actually get it off of the battlefield. You take care of that 2-1, whatever. Let me keep my actual game plan going with Treasure Map and Treasure Cove.
Finding cost down of the Search for Azcanta, we're going to see Little Teferi come down. And what is Little Teferi going to do? He's sending back the second... No, sorry. In response, he's activating the treasure map, and then Teferi is sending it back to the hand. There we go.
So there are ways for John to actually manage treasure maps. Little Teferi can bounce it, and of course we can see Big Teferi tuck it away. So it's not like once treasure map gets onto the battlefield, it's there forever. There are ways to manage it and slow it down, but Rapha's already able to transform one, which means he'll see probably 2 cards a turn, and with another treasure map, he's going to keep trying to work this plan. These are all 3 treasure maps he has after sideboard.
Is this a Revel in Riches deck?
You know it's not. You know?
Wouldn't that be a treat?
To the disappointment to everyone at home, it is not a Revel in Riches deck.
All the jank brewers everywhere let out a sigh. Chain Whirler on the top, though, for the treasure map scry. Let's take a look and see where it goes. Is it going to sit on top?
So Chain Whirler is interesting in this spot because you would think traditionally, okay, that's just a creature that gets killed via cast down and Kaya's Wrath, and that card doesn't actually matter. In this spot, Chain Whirler is going to come down. It's going to deal a point of damage to John. It's going to take care of Teferi Time Raveler, which opens up the ability for Viashino Pyromancer to try to deal 2 damage to John. So he's playing a much slower plan as Wrath. We don't see this a ton in Magic. Sometimes Mono Red doesn't have the tools to do this, and I'm not even sure how good this is in the format of Standard right now, but in this particular game, it's shaping up very nicely.
He could be onto something, you know. He may just be onto something with these treasure maps. Viashino Pyromancer getting in for the 2 points of damage, but the Goblin Chain Whirler is in the bin, courtesy of a cost down. Search for Escanta, now digging through. Ooh, we see a Kaya's Wrath on top of the library for John Rolf. Does he keep it? Does he put it to the bottom?
Again, that's the kind of decision he has to make right now, where normally it would be a very easy decision. This one's a little bit more difficult. He's going to keep it right now. How good is that card going to be, given the construction of Wrath's deck after sideboard, where it's all about drawing cards and burning out your opponent? We'll have to find out. But now Wrath is actually being put to the true test.
Lyra Dawnbringer in action now for John Rolf. This card is a massive threat, but as we know, Raphael Levy has ways to deal with it. He just has to find it. Where is that fight with fire that he needs to get rid of Lyra Dawnbringer? So he can... I like this treasure map in the mono red deck because, like, with most aggressive strategies, there's no real way to get card advantage. You know, we've got the Experimental Frenzies and the Chandras, but if those aren't there, you at least have treasure map to help you just get some stuff off the top of your deck.
Now, what's scary about this go-long plan by Raph is, you know, obviously he's managing his draw steps with the scries and drawing cards with Treasure Cove, sacrificing the treasures, right? All of this is all well and good. However, at the end of the day, the deck that has the more powerful cards is John Rolf's.
Yeah.
Search for Escanta has transformed, and as good as Treasure Map is at scrying and drawing cards and everything, nothing really overtakes the power of activating Escanta, the Sunken Ruin, every single turn. So as much fun as this has been, seeing Raph put mountains to the bottom and Gia 2 Lava Runners to the bottom and sacrificing treasures to draw cards, you better kill this Lyra Dawnbringer or it's going to kill you.
Oh yeah, you can see he's like, all right, I'm gonna go digging. I need to find something that kills this flying birdie. Otherwise, he's in a bit of a pickle.
Now, also part of this strategy is with Treasure Map and Treasure Cove doing its thing. Ideally, what you're able to do, as Raph has seen a lot of cards this game, is actually find an Experimental Frenzy, get that to stick, and then go absolutely ballistic that way. He hasn't found one yet in all the scrying that he's doing. Now, I'm sure he'll run into one somewhat soon, but he needs to find one sooner rather than later. Otherwise, once again, Lyra's going to win this game in short order.
So we haven't seen an attack yet from Lyra, correct? No.
Oh, not yet. I mean,
no, she's just hanging out there. She's just
soon.
waiting.
Soon, I promise.
Okay. All right. Also a bit of a risky, well, you know, a bit of a consideration with Kaya's Wrath having Lyra Dawnbringer on the board. Obviously, you don't want to kill the angel. You want it to hang out and gain your life and keep you safe against these ferocious little red critters. But Teferi Time Raveler on the board now is going to kick away the tapped treasure map with the 2 counters on. And just stop him from generating even more treasures. Lyra getting in for 5 points of damage, gaining 5 points of life. And just, yeah, being a solid threat in the air there for John Rolf.
Raph is still digging. You know, another mountain's going to go to the bottom. He's got to find Fight with Fire or Experimental Frenzy. We've seen this plan, once again, we have seen this plan actually take place in Magic before, in older formats and certainly in this one. Of what players will ramp towards with Treasure Map, and those treasures are either Fight with Fire with Kicker, or you'll see Bane Fire for X equals whatever your life total is.
1 million.
Yeah, or certainly very close to it. In this instance, X would probably equal 5 to kill Lyra Dawnbringer. But again, Raph is digging really, really hard with Treasure Cove and sacrificing these treasures to draw cards. He's got to find an answer to the angel. That is step 1.
Still digging, still finding mountains on the top. No mountains behave. Viashino Pyromancer will hit the board and get rid of Teferi Time Raveler.
It certainly has the potential to. I don't know how much Raph actually cares about that card, but it looks like he's going to finish it off.
Yeah, I think it's just like an instinctive thing for mono red decks, just to go, it's a Teferi, get it. Right? Oh, we're swinging in here. Yes, of course, Lyra is tapped, so the 2 wizards are getting in for 3 points of damage. But we do have Cast Down in the hand of John Rolf. Does he fire that off, get rid of the bigger threat, potentially? Or does he just hang on to it for a bit? His life total isn't under that much pressure. But it looks like we will see the Cast Down on the Viashina Pyromancer.
I mean, one of the things that John kind of wants to do at this stage of the game, too, is just start to convert his cards into actually doing something. He could pick a better spot for that cast down, sure, but you know what? Let's just cast that card. Let's make sure I use all my mana every single turn because he already has kind of I've got 4 mana baked into activating Escanta the Sunken Ruin, 3 plus actually using the Escanta. So let's just say, you know what? Let me start actually casting my cards and actually converting these cards because I don't win the game for having, ending the game with, I have the best hand, so I win, right? It's like you actually have to cast your spells in order to win the game.
Oh, could you imagine if that was a win condition in Magic?
Esper would win a lot then. Because all their cards are better than everyone else's.
I shudder to think about that. All right, so an interesting attack there from Lyra, leaving Teferi vulnerable to an attack here.
Well, Teferi...
He won't die though, right?
I mean, Teferi's going to... It'll draw a card. Maybe it'll tuck something away.
Oh,
Again,
there we go.
we're seeing more of this you don't get to transform your treasure map type game that John is playing on this side of things because he's just not letting Raph actually find something that's good. Get2 Lava Runner's another garbage card. And you see Raph starting to shake his head and get a little bit frustrated. Yeah, because he's not finding what he's looking for. He's got to find Fight with Fire. Direfleet Daredevil isn't bad. Now, Cast Down can't kill Lyra Dawnbringer, so it is my hope that there's something in the graveyard for Raph to be able to use to be able to get this Lyra Dawnbringer off the battlefield.
Just a moment of craving, but even that's not going to get it done for him. He can get rid of Big Teferi. That's fine. Direfleet Daredevil.
Okay,
oh,
D-Spark
D-Spark.
works.
Actually,
D-Spark
yeah.
works.
Oh, never mind. It's fine. I'll just steal your cards and kill your things with it.
Again, this is also part of the plan of playing longer, right? He's got a ton of copies of Direfleet Daredevil. He can use John's weapons against him, manage his Teferis, and keep going. Again, however, he's got to find a way to actually start to get this game over with because if he doesn't, Escanta is better than Treasure Map, and Escanta will run away with the game.
Exactly right. So, speak of the devil, it is now activating. Gonna dig through the library, find something to help John Rolf out here. Everything is it's basically at his fingertips. Whatever he wants, he can go and find, and that's a Lyra. All right, so the card that we just got rid of was there, but it looks like Cry of the Carnarium is going to be the pick. So he's got Kaya's Wrath, Oath of Kaya, Basilica Bellhaunt, and Cry of the Carnarium to deal with all of these creatures. Yeah, that's a pretty good place to be if you're John Rolf.
Again, this is a really nice hand here for John. However, one of the things that he doesn't have solved at this stage of thing is the treasure map transforming into Treasure Cove next turn. It's got 2 counters on it, third one on the way, probably on Raph's upkeep. So Raph, as far as actually getting to transform this thing, he's getting closer to being able to do that. John's got a multitude of ways of actually clearing up this battlefield between Kaya's Wrath and Cry of the Carnarium, but I'm sure he also wants to try to figure out, should I play Basilica Bellhaunt this turn as well, even though I'm not getting a card, and that's what he's going to do.
So finding the treasure map again off the top of the library, and we're going to transform into Treasure Cove, finding Goblin Chainwhirler. On the top, are you going to go to the back? He's thinking about it. He's like, yeah, okay, to the back you go. Goblin Chainwhirler, no time for you. 3 treasures off of the transformed treasure map, and we'll see the third hit the board this turn, potentially.
He needs to find,
why not.
He needs to find Frenzy so bad.
He does.
If he can find Frenzy, he can actually start to get back in this game. He's, of course, got 4 copies in his deck. I'm shocked he hasn't found one yet.
That's pretty good.
Lava Coil's fine. You know, happy to get that 3-4 off the battlefield and actually get some damage through. What Rolf was setting up was a combination of play Basilica Bellhaunt, brick wall your team, and then play Cry of the Carnarium and attack you with the Bellhaunt. Lava Coil just blew that play up. So if you're Raph, you're somewhat happy with finding that card.
So there we go. We see the third treasure map hit the board, swinging in for 6 points of damage. John Rolf's life total is back to starting, so, you know, he's got a bit more work to do, but there are the threats of the Wraths in John Rolf's hand, so these creatures aren't going to hang around for very long.
Again, it looks like John's going to start his turn by activating his Kanta. No surprise there, flying Teferi, Time Raveler. Now, if you're John, what's going through your head is, 1, let me clear away all these creatures, probably going to do it via Cry of the Carnarium. And then 2, how do I go about winning this game before Treasure Map and, assuming Raph ever finds Experimental Frenzy, those start to take over. I wouldn't be surprised to see Oath of Kaya start doming Raph.
Yeah.
3 damage here. Another one puts Raph down to 4.
He's going to go down to 1.
Yeah, Teferi bouncing 1 puts him down to 1. So that might be John's win condition now. Again, Raph, I don't know how you haven't found Experimental Frenzy yet with all these mountains.
This is ridiculous. Look at his face. He's even like, are you kidding me?
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. We found it.
Here we go.
All right, we might see some fireworks.
It took him long enough, but here we go.
Buckle yourselves in, viewers. You're in for a treat, perhaps.
Now,
it sometimes behaves, it sometimes doesn't.
We'll see what mana he actually wants to use to deploy this. Also, keep in mind that Raph has put a ton of mountains to the bottom of his deck, so I would not be surprised at all to see some sort of crazy chain of cards come rolling off here. How you sequence this is very, very important. Which mana you use to deploy it is also very important as well, because you might want to use Treasure Cove to do so. But here we go.
1 spell. 2 spells. 2 Fanatical Firebrands. That's a mountain. Fine. 3 spells. Vishina Pyromancer. Go on. Let him go. Let him go.
He's got to figure out how he wants to tap
Put me in, coach.
for it. Okay, so
Another
back
experimental
up Frenzy.
Not too bad. Not great. All right, so there's 4 potential playables there. Fanatical Firebrands getting in for 2 points of damage. The Vishina Pyromancer doming for 2 as well. Thoughty Rager is not going to do anything right now.
Horrible
That's
draw
an
step.
icky card. Ugh, you don't want to see that.
Arguably the worst draw step in John's deck.
Yeah, after like turn 2 or 3 or no 3.
Well, even
when is the red hand usually empty? It's just like
the red hand is empty on occasion, but when your opponent has Experimental Frenzy in the battlefield, you don't care about the cards that are in their hand, just the cards that are on top of their deck. So for John there, that is arguably the worst draw in his deck. We'll see if his Kanta can find something better to do than that. Okay, the burnout plan is in effect.
Here we go. Is he gonna get it here this turn? I don't think he has the mana for it all.
I don't believe he has the mana to do all of this.
No.
Because it would take 12 mana. It would take cast Oath of Kaya, bounce Oath of Kaya, cast it again.
All right. Cool.
He can do it over the course of 2 turns, but it is in play that Raph actually wins this game next turn because he has so much mana. It will be hard, but it is in play.
It'd be glorious.
I can't argue with that.
It would be glorious. Let's see. Let's see if Experimental Frenzy behaves. We know that it's a very fickle little card. It's experimental, obviously. It likes to do strange things.
This has got to be John's game plan. Looking through the graveyard here, I am curious if there's anything. Yeah, Raph knows. Raph knows. Raph's been playing Magic so long. You see the reaction knowing that it took me so long to find Experimental Frenzy to enact this game plan.
Going down to 1. This is he has its do or die now, literally. All right, Direfleet Daredevil, what do we find?
Yep, so that's the big question is, what is there in the graveyard that can gain Raph some life or deal some points of damage? Moment of Craving isn't great because it's going to take him from 1 to 3. And he can't bring back Kaya's Wrath, of course, because that's an enchantment. Doesn't work with Direfleet Daredevil. So as he scans through the graveyard, this is a card he just has to play anyway to get through the Experimental Frenzy.
Yeah. We got to find something else here. We got to find a crazy concoction of cards. Let's see what we find. So there's Direfleet Daredevil. What do we grab from the grave? We're going to grab Moment of Craving and probably just kill the Direfleet Daredevil because it can't attack this turn.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, he can target it, and we'll see what he wants to do because now he's found a copy of Fight with Fire on top of the deck as well.
Oh, yes. Okie dokie. Let's see. Do we fire it off here for 10? Of course we do. Of course we do.
Yeah, 10 is nice, but if you're Raph, you're hoping that there's no additional copy of Oath of Kaya or Teferi Time Raveler. But as we can see here in the booth, and you can see at home, John Rolf has a Teferi Time Raveler.
There's the other fight with fire.
Oh my gosh.
Can he survive this turn, though?
No.
I don't think he can.
Nope.
Oh, man.
That is unreal.
I bet you he is cursing every single mountain he put to the bottom of his deck right now.
No, it's just, it took him too long to find Experimental Frenzy. That's the long and the short of this game is he did everything that he was supposed to do as far as setting up this game plan goes. He was scrying lands to the bottom, he was interacting with his opponent and killing Lyra and managing the Planeswalkers, and eventually he's supposed to find Frenzy and do this.
Yeah.
And it took him too long to actually do this. And John's draw steps were somewhat favorable, but he also did a really nice job of managing the game and finding those cards via Escanta the Sunken Ruin. He was able to find multiple copies of Oath of Kaya, rolled off a Teferi Time Raveler that Raph doesn't know. Actually, Raph does know about because he's seen it. And so Raph is massaging the temples of his brain, knowing that I think this is coming to an end.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for Raphael Levy. That'll be the end of his tournament because we're going to see Teferi bounce Oath of Kaya and just dome him for 3. Here we go.
That's brutal because I think Raph did such a nice job of managing this game and his deck just did not cooperate with him. And you can see him shaking his head in that facial expression of just knowing I have Fight with Fire on top of my deck for kicker to deal 10 more to you, and I'm not going to be able to get the job done coming up 1 turn short.
Oh, man. Heartbreaking stuff for Raphael Levy, but congratulations to John Rolf. He is still in this, friends. Don't go anywhere, because after this short commercial break, we are revealing a brand new card for M20. So stay where you are. We will be right back.